Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Let's, if Ramesh wants to chime in on Comey, we'll certainly entertain his insights.
Yes. Hello.
He is a bon vivant, so he's well-versed in a range of topics. He's also a National Review senior editor. He's a columnist for Bloomberg, and he's the author of a number of books, including a very good book, The Party of Death, The Democrats, the Media, and the Courts, and the Disregard for Human Life. And he joins us now. Ramesh, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So why don't we start with Obamacare? We spoke with David Drucker from the Washington Examiner earlier in the show, and the question of kind of timeline on what the Senate will do on Obamacare replace and whether or not they're going to at least consider the urgency of the marketplace when it comes to plan offerings from providers for next year, such that American families actually experience the ostensible improvements with respect to cost and quality and access and choice before the midterm elections, or whether they're just going to take whatever time is required to, go through the machinations to make sure they have something that can pass, and whether or not those two things are mutually exclusive. What's your sense of that?
My sense is that they're aware of the need for speed for the marketplace, but that the stronger concern is getting it right substantively, getting it right politically. And so I think they're going to take a more leisurely schedule than, say, Speaker Ryan wants them to take. And I do think, there have been so many attempts to try to rush this, and I just think the political process is just not going to bear that kind of speed, and this is going to end up consuming a lot of time.
Do you think that female Republican senators should be part of the process, though, when they're working on this health care bill?
Well, to be perfectly candid about it, on the substance, I am not sure that Senator Fisher of Nebraska, however great she is in many respects, has any particular health care expertise to bring to the table. But I think politically it is a little nutty that Republicans would allow an all-male group like this. I think this is something they've just repeatedly gotten burned on, and they never seem to learn a lesson.
But are there Republican female senators, Ernst or Collins or Fisher, that are trying to break into the group and are being excluded?
No. No. My sense of it is that the people who are outside are perfectly happy to be left outside.
Yeah.
As you may have noticed, there are some political sensitivities.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that element of it.
And I think people would like the ability to have a little distance for as long as they can.
Well, on the issue of Obamacare replacement, you've written extensively about this. This is an area that you're well versed in with respect to healthcare policy. And one of the things that you wrote with respect to what passed the House is about the tax credits and whether or not they're substantial enough, particularly for older Americans that are closer to the Medicaid dividing line. Explain how you think perhaps the Senate could improve upon what the House passed for both the purposes of palatability and passability as well as actual functioning for American families.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the criticisms of the House health care bill have been hysterical, but there are some legitimate ones that can be addressed. And I do think that the tax credits that the Republican bill provides are going to be inadequate for people who are older but not yet eligible for Medicare, and people who are low income but not low income enough to be eligible for Medicaid. And I think that what you should do in those cases is make those credits a little bit bigger to make it easier for them to afford health insurance. Because, of course, if you're older, your health insurance premiums are going to be higher. Now, Obamacare tries to solve that problem by just saying the insurance company can't charge you extra. It has to charge you closer to what it charges young people. And the problem with that is that it means insurance companies overcharge young people who then don't buy insurance, and you've got an older and sicker insurance pool. The Republicans want to move away from that, let the insurance companies charge older people more and younger people. Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense, but if you're going to do that, then you've got to provide a little bit more help for the older people.
But if there is no individual mandate, what would motivate some who are healthy and young, like, I'll spend my money somewhere else?
Well, I think the idea is that even with the mandate, a lot of young people are not finding insurance to be worth it to them. And the key thing we have to do is make it more worth their while so that they can get a cheap policy that protects them against catastrophic health care. Now, a lot of young people, even when it makes more sense, are still going to say no for various reasons. And that's their right, but I do think more people will say yes when it's a better deal.
Are you concerned at all about the political impact of the termination of Jim Comey and now the Senate being forced, essentially forced, to spend the rest of at least this week and certainly into the future when Trump comes up with a nominee to replace him, focused on the director of the FBI to the exclusion of Obamacare replacement or tax reform?
I think it's pretty clear that that's the story that's going to be dominating the news for the next week. I mean, although, gosh, you never know in this administration. It seems to me that the dismissal of Comey is defensible and may even be correct, but it's been done at a time and in a way that makes it hard to defend. And that this ends up kind of being the story of a lot of things that Trump does. The substance is actually defensible, but it's just done in a hard to defend manner. And I think a lot of people on the Hill have got to be pretty upset about the way this has gone down.
Yeah, and clearly nobody saw this coming. And the only other time in U.S. history that a sitting president has fired a FBI director was in 1993 with Bill Clinton and Sessions. So this is, new chart.
And Sessions was not a comparable example, right?
Right.
Sessions was guilty of some ethical violations and then just refused to step down over it.
Right. So it's an unusual circumstance to occur, and the way this occurred. Although it was interesting last night, Susan Collins, not exactly you think Trump firewall Susan Collins, those things you don't usually think. But she was on basically saying, look, number one, the Democrats are being absurd. Number two, you just had justice personnel confirmed. It took a while for Sessions. You just got Rod Rosenstein in a couple of weeks ago. And she certainly wasn't defending Comey's handling of the Hillary Clinton investigation or anything else. So it was interesting to see the first reaction from a more moderate member of the Senate Republican caucus, basically rallying to Trump's defense on this decision.
That's true, and those are legitimate points that she makes. But it's also true that there have been some Russia-related subpoenas recently. It's true that the Rosenstein explanation doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in terms of the timing or in terms of anything that would actually be likely to motivate President Trump. We've got reports had made his decision and then went to justice looking for a rationale. Again, as I said, a potentially correct decision just done, I think, in a very unfortunate manner. And then I think the way that Comey was informed about it was also
classless.
Pretty, yes, exactly.
He is Ramesh Ponnuru, columnist for Bloomberg View, senior editor for National Review. Ramesh, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate it.
This was fun.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.